All right, that's the question. Raise your hand if you would rather look bad. Raise your hand if you would rather be bad. To me, like, I am not raising my hand, Kendal. There's no right answer here today, right? Today we're starting a new series called Your Integrity, Our World. And during this series, the reason why we're calling it this is because here's the deal. For me, my personal integrity or lack thereof impacts the world around me, impacts my family, impacts my community, all the people around me. Your integrity or lack thereof impacts the people around you as well. So we all know kind of what integrity is, but over the next few weeks, we're gonna kind of dive into this idea of integrity. I would love to just open us up in prayer as we get started here today. Lord Jesus, thank you. Thank you for each of the people in this room this morning. Thank you for waking us up on a beautiful Colorado day. And thank you for this opportunity that we have to come here, talk about integrity, talk about how our lives can be guided by integrity, the rules, the way to do things that you have given us. God, we just thank you for this time today. We love you. We pray these things in your name. Amen. So, integrity is the will or the courage to do the right thing, the noble thing, just because it's the right or noble thing to do, regardless of the consequences. In fact, especially if there are consequences, right? Especially if there was a less noble thing, a more or less right thing that you could do that would keep you out of trouble. And yet we decide for some reason, you know what, I'm just gonna do the right thing. Why? I mean, it's not gonna help me, it's not gonna benefit me in this situation. In fact, it's maybe gonna make me look bad, but I'm gonna do the right thing just because it's the right thing, even though it's gonna cost me. Or take that one step further, I'm gonna do the right thing because it's the right thing, even if no one sees me doing the right thing. Or even if I did the wrong thing, no one would know that I did the wrong thing. And here's the thing about integrity. We are all pretty quick to excuse our own personal lack of integrity, right? Or to breach in our integrity. We kind of dismiss that, but we are never quick to excuse it in other people, right? We expect integrity in our leaders. We expect integrity in our teachers. We expect integrity in our employers, in our employees, in our kids, in our husband, in our wife, our boyfriend, our girlfriend, our fiance. We expect universally the people around us to respond to us with integrity. Get this, even thieves and cheaters don't expect to be stolen from or cheated on. That doesn't make any sense. But this brings us to kind of a big idea, this big idea that we're gonna unpack throughout this series, that there is an overwhelming, an overarching sense of ought to in our lives. We ought to do this. It stands outside of us, right? There's an ought to that we appeal to, that we hold others accountable to. We didn't make it up, it's bigger than us. And it sometimes it presses down on our consciences. It sometimes judges us. And we know we didn't create this idea, but we also can't shake it. And we appeal to it when we feel like, man, we've been mistreated or somebody that we love's been mistreated. But man, it didn't originate with us. It wasn't our idea, because if it originated with us, we would just get rid of it, because sometimes it really gets in the way. Even though we may not always look like we believe there's an ought to, because we don't act the way we ought to, our reactions when other people don't live up to what they ought to do shows that we think there's an ought to that you ought to live up to, right? You follow me? Okay? So the Apostle Paul, a leader in the early church, he says this. He says, actually, what that is that's the law of God written on your hearts. He says it this way in Romans 2. When Gentiles, not Jewish people that don't know the law, people that aren't followers of Jesus, when Gentiles They don't even have the law. Do by nature things required by the law. They are a law for themselves, even though they do not have the law. They show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts. Their consciences also bear witness, and their thoughts, sometimes accusing them and other times even defending them. There is a divine element to this. This idea that the law of God is written on your heart, on my heart, on all of humanity's hearts. This isn't like traffic laws. Traffic laws, you learn those when you learn to drive, right? You're like, oh, there's laws, there's traffic laws. That makes sense. Then you learn how to drive. But there's something in your heart that God put there. It's like if this is the thing that makes us say we should probably obey those traffic laws, right? Because that's good for me and for all the other people around me. It's the thing inside of us that informs our conscience. That when our conscience bumps up against something that we struggle with, something that we just want to do, we want to do it because it's good for us. It doesn't matter if it's good for anybody else. In that moment, when our conscience bumps up against those things, this is so important, especially if you're not a religious person, or you used to be, but you're not anymore. You kind of let that slip out of your life. In that moment, integrity, it convicts us. It judges us, and sometimes it makes us do the right thing. The right thing that's right for everyone, not just right for me. And even though we don't like it, right? We don't like it when we're convicted of our integrity. We're quick to appeal to it when somebody else mistreats us. And these moments, man, they come at us fast. Before this day is out, before your head hits your pillow tonight, you're gonna do this. There will be a moment you find yourself wrestling with, I said I was not gonna lose my temper today, but these kids are on my absolute last nerve, right? I said I wasn't going to tell someone I was sick to avoid going to their event, but I don't really want to go to their event. Or you're gonna be walking behind someone in the grocery store, they drop $50 and they don't know they dropped it, and you can just pick it up and walk away with it. This week, while I'm getting ready to talk about integrity, this message, Monday, I'm placing an Amazon order. And I'm ordering something that I need here for church, and I really need 2 of them. But in my budget, I can only afford 1 of them because they are very expensive. And so I'm like, man, what a bummer. Okay, so I order the thing. Thursday, it shows up, and I'm like, awesome. This thing is so good. You'll see it eventually. It's really cool. I'm like, this is great. Friday, I come back to church. I had to do some stuff up here. There's another one sitting at the door outside of church waiting to be brought inside. I was like, oh, shoot, I went back to my Amazon. I must have ordered 2 of them on accident. No, I only ordered 1. I only paid for 1, and I got 2. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do yet, but I'll let you know next week. This stuff comes at us fast. And the moment we find ourselves wrestling with what we ought to, we actually acknowledge God. The moment, think about this, the moment you attempt to justify behavior in your mind, you're actually acknowledging that there is an ought to placed in our hearts by God, that somehow we're accountable to it. We didn't create it, because if we did, man, we would have gotten rid of it by now. See, when you do what's best for someone else and it costs you, that's being like your Father in heaven. That's being like God. You are intentionally or unintentionally acknowledging God's rule, His kingdom over you. Let me say that again. When you do what's best for someone else and it costs you, you are acknowledging God's rule over you. But integrity, it's not just about us. It's not just about me. It's not just about you, because our integrity or lack of integrity always impacts other people around us, right? And maybe in the way you grew up. Some of you maybe grew up in a house where mom and dad had no integrity whatsoever. So you never learned how to be a person of integrity. That has affected you. You've had to learn how to function in society, learning what it means to be a person of integrity. Or maybe the opposite. Maybe you were raised in a family where there's a lot of integrity. Your parents demonstrated that to you, but you fell for the lie that just said, hey, I can compromise here. Or a little white lie here and there doesn't. Or a little cheating here or there. And man, now you're so far from what it means to be a person of integrity, you don't even know what it looks like anymore. However it happens, our integrity always impacts other people. Again, it's our integrity, your world. Our integrity or lack of integrity determines the health and the depth of our relationships. Let me ask you a question. Please don't raise your hand. Don't bump the person next to you. None of that. I already know the answer to this question. The question is yes, but I want to give you a minute to be reminded of why it's yes for you, okay? So here's the question. Have you ever lied? That's not the question, because I know you've all lied. I wouldn't even bother asking that question. Have you ever lied in an attempt to assure someone that you can be trusted? Let me ask the same question another way, because this kind of gets to the heart of what we're talking about. But have you ever compromised your integrity? Same idea, protecting your reputation as someone who has integrity. Have you ever had to compromise your integrity? You didn't tell the truth, the whole truth. You decided not to share that. You just flat out lied. And the reason that you did it was to protect your reputation as someone that can be trusted, someone that has integrity. And I think, if we're being honest, most of us live with that pressure. Somewhere in our lives. I do. I live with it with you every single week because I want you to trust me. I don't want you to lose respect, because if you do, then whenever I'm up here talking, you're like, well, he doesn't do that, right? Pray for Sonia and my family. Everybody wants to go to a church where they don't think that the pastor's a hypocrite, right? They have to go to a church where they know the pastor's a hypocrite, right? If I really messed up in some way, shape, or form that would cause me to lose your respect, of course I would be tempted to lie. I would be tempted to cover that up if that's what required me to maintain your respect for me. Now, I'm not doing that, okay? Just so we're clear, but I'm saying we all live with that kind of pressure. And unfortunately, sometimes, if we're honest, sometimes we're willing to be bad if it makes us look good. Isn't that weird? It doesn't work. Integrity is essential in being content and being fulfilled in relationships. Have you ever tried to have a relationship with someone who lacks integrity? Can you even have a relationship with someone that lacks integrity? I mean, some of you, unfortunately, are maybe in relationships right now that you can't get out of, but the person just lacks integrity. They don't always tell the truth. They cover up. They blame, they shame, they won't have difficult conversations. This topic, this isn't even a religious or spiritual topic, it's human nature. It's every single day of our lives. But we're making the point today, the reason that we can't escape that, the reason that we hold other people accountable to it, is because there's a divine element to this. It impacts every component, every facet of our lives. Integrity in a relationship is like oil in a machine. When a machine is created, when a machine is made, the parts of that machine fit perfectly together. And oil is added to the machine to make sure those parts don't get overcome with the heat that comes from friction. But if there's no oil in that machine, those parts that work flawlessly together, that are perfectly matched to each other, they eventually destroy each other. Yeah, but man, she's so perfect for me. He's so perfect. It's like God sent them down to me. This job is so perfect. This organization is so amazing. This team is so perfect. But without integrity, being in close proximity with other people, friction, And eventually, there will be a breakdown in the relationship. So if you're single, and I mean like high school, college, grad school, maybe single again. If you're single, your looks, your money, your job, all that may win someone over. That may make someone want to go out with you. That may get you into a relationship, but it will not keep you in that relationship. I mean, falling in love is easy. Falling in love takes a pulse. That's it. Staying in love takes a whole lot more than that. And one of the most important things to staying in love is integrity. Having kids. Having kids is biology. Raising them together as two parents takes integrity. Getting a good job takes a good GPA and a good resume. Keeping that job, excelling in your workplace, building community where you work, that takes integrity. And a lack of integrity is always going to cost us relationally. It might cost us professionally. It might cost us in relationships with the people that matter the absolute most to us. So the question that we're trying to answer in this series is integrity. How do we get it? How do we guard it once we have it? How do we keep it? And maybe in your case, how do I get it back? Here's the challenge. We're going to dive into our key verse for this series, but here's the challenge that I think a lot of us face. If you want to improve your looks, right? I'm not saying any of you need to improve your looks, but if you wanted to improve your looks, there are so many different things you could do. There are places you could go to have things done. There are products you could use. There's all of that. If you want to get better at work, if you want to be better in a better financial situation, if you want to learn a new skill, if you want to get better at playing golf, if you want to get better at any of your hobbies, in our culture, there are literally hundreds of things you can do to get better at things. And actually, there's going to be a YouTube video for every single thing. But when it comes to integrity, where do we go? Like, who's offering to help us? And to make it worse, the external pressure that we feel to compromise rather than preserve our integrity is relentless. And compromising your integrity in some fields, in some industry, is kind of how you get ahead, how you stay ahead of the competition. It almost is a key to succeeding. Maybe you feel like, hey, if I don't compromise a little bit, I'm not gonna survive in my job. But maybe even more disturbing than that is the fact that internal pressure from ourselves to compromise rather than preserve our integrity is also relentless. Shame avoidance, failure avoidance, all of that is important to us. No one wants to look bad publicly. So when it comes to integrity, the deck is stacked against us. There's nobody out there to help you. Sorry, good luck, right? It's just a mess. But there's a way to begin. And the way to begin, it's found several places in the Bible. Today we're gonna look at this one that's found in the Hebrew Scriptures. It's found in the book of Proverbs. And a proverb is like, it's like a direct saying with specific truth, right? And a piece of advice about life. It's like saying a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. That's a proverb. It's not in the Bible, but that's true, right? So these proverbs were found in our Bible. They're written by all different people. Solomon wrote the most of them. And in Proverbs 11, he writes this. I would love for you to commit this verse to memory throughout this series. We're gonna talk about it each week. But here's what it says. It says, the integrity, that's the word, right? The integrity of the upright will guide them. In other words, people of integrity becomes their guide in life. It becomes the filter, the decision-making filter. It highlights the right things and the wrong things, and they make their decisions based on that. The integrity of the upright will guide them. Now, we're gonna look at the whole verse, but before we do that, I need to ask you an uncomfortable question that you might not have the answer to, but I think it's important that each and every one of us get the answer to this question. And the question is this: what guides you? The integrity of the upright guides them. The way they make decisions is the reason they're a person of integrity. And the being a person of integrity is what guides their decision making. It's kind of like this big circle. And it's the filter through which they decide which options are appropriate, which are not. What not to do, what to do, how to respond, how not to respond, even if it makes them look bad. But what guides you? Is it pleasure, profit, looking good, financial security, status? The list can go on and on, right? There's all these different things that can guide you, but I think that we want integrity to guide us. But here's the challenge. Challenge is this: we don't know if integrity guides us until maintaining our integrity costs us. Is integrity actually guiding us, or is it just like a good idea? And that's why, and this sounds like a terrible thing for me to say, but I hope for all of us, and maybe some of you are like, been there, done that, but I hope that for all of us, at some point along the way, our integrity would be tested. And actually, it's not really a test, it's more of a pop quiz, right? A test you can study for, you can get ready for, but it's usually in the moment, right? It's like, here we are in the moment. Do I tell the truth or do I not tell the truth? Do I do the right thing or do I not do the right thing? And I would hope that somewhere in your life in the near future, that your integrity would be tested, that you would pass that test, and that it would cost you, and maybe even cost you dearly. $50. Nobody will know that I picked up $50 and kept it. Extra Amazon purchases. Who's gonna know? Well, you'll all know, but whatever. Because in that moment, you will know something about yourself that you can't know any other way. You will know what is most important to you. And on the flip side of all that, this is one of the reasons why we should be very careful. We should be very careful when we judge other people whose shoes we've never walked in. You've thought this, or you've said this. I've said this. I've said, oh, I would never do that, right? I would never do that, but you don't know that. Let me tell you about Peter. Peter was one of Jesus' closest friends, one of his disciples, follower of Jesus. Peter thought he was the man. Like out of all the 12 disciples, Peter thought he was the best. By the things he said, by the things he did, he was like top dog. Right? So the night before Jesus is crucified, he's about to be turned over to be crucified. They're sitting around. Jesus says to all of his disciples, here's the thing. Tonight, you're all going to run away. You're all going to leave because you're going to be scared. And Peter's like, I would never do that. And Jesus is like, oh, really, Peter? Actually, not just that. But by the time tomorrow morning rolls around, before the rooster signals that it's morning, you will 3 times deny that you even know who I am. And Peter's like, I would never do that, right? And he does exactly that. Because here's the thing, wherever you are, somewhere out there, there's a that. There's a that while you're sitting here listening to me, while you're sitting with someone hearing their story, in your mind you say, I would never do that. And then suddenly there's a pop quiz. And if you don't do that, you're going to lose out on something. You're going to miss out on something. They're not going to call you back. You're not going to get into your dream school. You're not going to get that job, whatever it might be. And at that moment, you discover it's the only way to know if integrity is actually your guide. So what guides you? Now there's a fascinating word picture at play in this verse as well. I want to point that out to you too. In the verse, it says the integrity of the upright will guide them. The word upright in Hebrew is just like the word upright in English, and it means literally to be upright. Literally, to stand up straight, put your shoulders back, chin up, and look out long into the future. Versus, as we'll see in the second part of the verse, versus living your life like this. Because when you live your life like this, you are most aware of who and what is directly in front of you. And when you're looking at what's right in front of you, it limits your options. It limits your perspective. When you're living like this, it's immediate versus ultimate. It's now versus later. When you walk with integrity, there's a posture. You stand up straight. You take the long view. You look up. You look out. You look into the future. A person of integrity realizes, you know what? Later is longer. Now is immediate. And yeah, now is immediate, but later is longer, and longer is better. When I look back on this decision that I'm thinking about making right now, or these decisions in my life, what story do I want to tell? The person of integrity, they are upright. They are looking out into the future. They are making decisions based on what the story is that they're going to tell to their kids or to their grandkids or even beyond. Not on what's going on right now. They weigh their options with their future in mind and the future of the people that they love in mind. So again, what's guiding you? Let me dig a little bit more. If your trigger response when you're under pressure is to lie, to make excuses, to cover up, to blame, to point at the other person, try to deflect, it's not my fault, I didn't do it. If your trigger response, my trigger response, if it's any of those things, those are clues that perhaps integrity is not your guide. And at this point in the series, I'm not suggesting that you change anything, right? We're only on week 1, right? But I do want you to know and answer this terrible question. If I'm quick to abandon my integrity, right? I'll never do that. I'll always do that. But then I met him or I met her and now it's like, oh yeah, hey, whatever. Yeah, I'm down, whatever. If in the past you had standards, you want to live the long view, you want to live upright, but you are quick under certain circumstances with certain people to abandon your integrity, then you need to ask, this is not a religious question. This is just a make you a better person question. If I'm quick to abandon my integrity, well then what's really guiding me? What's really driving me? You should know the answer to that question. I should know the answer to that question. And discovering the answer to that question, it may motivate you, it may embarrass you to make some changes. And if you're like a lot of people, you may discover, please don't see me pointing fingers except for back at myself. I think we all wrestle with this. I know I wrestle with this. You might discover that you're more concerned with looking good than being good. That what drives you is looking good, not necessarily what is good. Now, quick question, then we're going to move on, right? You're like, goodness, Kendal, this is terrible. Can't we just talk about Jesus or something? I know, right? Like, for real. But like, don't answer this out loud. But what do you think about people like this? The people that I'm describing. What do you think about people who defend themselves, who deflect, who lie, look around for someone else to blame? What do you think about those people? You know people like this. You work with people like this. You might live with people like this. And you're not like, oh man, they're just great. I want to be just like them. No, because it's almost impossible to have an actual relationship with someone who is like this kind of person. So don't be this kind of person. Discover what's really guiding you. Face up to it. It's not easy, but it is necessary. It's a necessary step to getting to where you not only need to be, but where you probably want to be. Now, on the other hand, what do you think about this kind of people? The people that when they mess up, they own up, and then they clean up, right? People who say, I'm not gonna leave you dealing with my irresponsibility. Like an irresponsible decision, it left a mess. I am not going to leave you with that mess. I'm gonna clean up my own mess. And not only that, I'm gonna check back with you and make sure that you never have to deal with this kind of mess again. I'm owning it. And this is so important. Please hear me. If you're a parent, grandparent, if you're married, you're engaged, you have someone that you love, they love you, you hope to spend the rest of your life with them, you have a team at work, the people that you love and you work with, it's so important. The health of your relationships is contingent upon your integrity, not your infallibility. No one expects you to be perfect. The respect of your kids, your husband, your wife, the respect of people close to you, their respect hinges not on your infallibility. It is okay to make mistakes. It is okay to be wrong. It is okay to mess up. It is not okay to lie about your mistakes. Being guided by integrity. That's what sets the standard for the people around you. And that's what maintains the relationship. That oil, the integrity, keeps the friction from destroying the relationships. Your integrity is more important than your infallibility. So own it. Own it. And when you find yourself wrestling, you've just discovered that something else other than integrity might be your guide. So here's the second part of the verse. The first part, the integrity of the upright will guide them. Here's the contrast. The crookedness of the treacherous. Okay, that's another Hebrew word there. The root of this word means to throw a blanket over something, right? To cover it up so you can't see, to act deceitfully. It's like someone says, hey, don't look over here. I'm doing this in the dark. I've got a blanket over my head. The integrity of the upright will guide them. The crookedness of the treacherous will destroy them. Meaning literally, it will lay waste to the landscape. Everything will be gone. Eventually, it catches up. Eventually, there's a price to pay because we chose not to straighten up. Because they wouldn't take the long look. They concentrated on the immediate. It was about now instead of later. They refused to take into account the harm that they were going to do to themselves or to the people around them. So they did themselves harm and they did harm to the people around them. Now, I'm not going to insult your intelligence, right? And say, which kind of person do you want to be? Duh. We all want to get this right. We all want integrity to guide us. For the sake of the people we love, for the sake of the people around us. Here's the verse again. The integrity of the upright will guide them, but the crookedness of the treacherous, the right here, right now, what's right in front of me, will ultimately destroy them. And as we know, it will probably destroy the people around them as well. So this is where we're going to leave it today. I'm going to ask you the question, what guides you? And in the next few weeks, we're gonna talk about other things that might guide us, that might get in the way, and how we can move past those things to make sure that integrity is our guide. What informs your decisions? The things that you ought to do. Is it an ought to? Or is it want to? Or is it to protect you? Or is it a combination of all those things? Because integrity, the kind of integrity that says, I'm going to do the right thing, even if it costs me. I'm going to do the noble thing, even if people don't understand. I'm going to do the honorable thing, even if nobody sees me doing the honorable thing. That kind of integrity, it's a muscle. It's a muscle, and the longer you exercise it, the stronger it gets. So you should start now. Don't wait. Because here's what people will say. I'm going to wait until I'm married. I'm going to wait till I'm done with college. I'm going to wait till I have kids. I'm going to wait till I have that job. But those things won't make you a person of integrity. The people who exercise their integrity muscle, they're the ones who have the ability to straighten up. They're the ones opting for ought to over want to, opting for later over now, ultimate over immediate. They take the long view. And when they mess up, they fess up. They clean up. No more cover up. So be a person that exercises that integrity muscle. You'll be glad that you did. And guess what? The people around you will be glad that you did as well. Would you pray with me? Jesus, thank you. Thank you for putting on each and every one of our hearts, all of us, how we should live our lives, what we should do, what we shouldn't do, how we should treat the people around us. Not what's best for us, but what's best for our entire world. And God, I know for each and every one of us, we want integrity to guide us. But if we're honest, there's a lot of other things in our life that guide us. Sometimes, all the time, every once in a while, whatever it looks like. Lord, would you help us? Would you help us to be guided by the integrity that comes from following you? This week, throughout this series, throughout the rest of our lives. God, we love you, but this is not easy, and we need your help. We pray these things in your name.